What's up, movie fans? We're the Hilsmaniacs, and today we're going to be reviewing the second movie in the Dark Knight trilogy, The Dark Knight. Okay, so the best parts of this movie and why it's such a great movie and why everyone thinks it's one of the best superhero movies of all time is just everything with the Joker in this movie, because he proves to be a really meticulous planner, and all the plans that he makes and everything else work out exactly how he wants them to. Right. Even though he claims he doesn't plan things, he just does things. He says that to Harvey Dent. You can tell he plans this all out, where everyone's supposed to be and things like that. And that's what makes him such a good villain. And I think that they really showed that great in this movie. And I wish we could have seen more of Heath Ledger's portrayal of this character in future installments. Right. I know this only got a trilogy, but if Christopher Nolan would have kept it going, I would have loved to have seen more of this version of Batman and all the characters that come along with Batman as well.
Yeah, his portrayal of Joker, I think, was one of the best. And I mean, I'm not the only one that thinks this. I know a lot of other people have said that, Heath Ledger as the Joker was probably the greatest Joker ever. Well, at least until Joaquin Phoenix, because I think he did pretty good,
I don't know.
He did win an Oscar for it. But so did Heath Ledger. So, I mean, hey. Yeah. But overall, I like the entire movie. It is, one of my favorite superhero movies ever. The Dark Knight.
With good reason.
And it is a good movie. I think it was well written, well directed. And the way that they set up the main plot, everybody thinks that Joker is just this crazy guy who goes off and just wants to kill people and stuff. But he actually has a motive to do it. He wants to prove that everybody is bad, basically.
Or that the ways that things are getting done are not proper. You have to, he says it in the movie, you have to introduce chaos and everything else in order to disturb the balance of things. There's an argument. I mean, I've seen videos of people talking about this and everything else. There's an argument that technically, Joker was actually the hero of this movie in a way, because he corrupts these mob bosses and things like that. He infiltrates mobs and stuff like that, and ends up destroying their money and their empire and all this other stuff.
Right.
Things that the cops failed to do because they were too scared to do it. And I like that Joker sort of took advantage of that, and he showed even Batman isn't able to do these things, whereas if you he has to kind of be that sort of person, like a killer and a thief and everything else, in order to get into those sort of situations and take these people out from the inside and all that other stuff. So Joker shows that in this movie.
And I mean, it also kind of shows, human nature in a way, and I think that's what Joker was trying to get at, is that everybody has a choice, and depending on what you want to happen depends on the choice you make. If you want to survive, are you willing to risk somebody else's life for you to survive, or are you willing to just be all right, hey, go ahead, you can survive and I'll die, and it's all about choice basically. And that was I think what they were trying to get at, is that no matter what, there's always a choice for somebody to do something. You can make a right decision, you can make a wrong decision, and either way it's going to impact something
or somebody
or cause a chain reaction, and something will happen, good or bad.
Right. And I like how they used that central theme of the movie and sort of also showed us the Batman side of that, where he's now sort of morally corrupt in a way, because Joker's getting to him. He's proving to Batman that, hey, your ways aren't working, and Bruce is starting to realize this, and he even by the end of it, he takes the blame for everything that Joker ended up doing throughout the movie, and Harvey Dent, but so that they would see Harvey Dent as a hero instead of him, because he's a vigilante anyways. So it's it showed that kind of thing as well. And I love how they used that dynamic between these two characters throughout the whole movie, like how Joker was kept winning basically no matter what he was doing, and Batman couldn't stop him. And I don't know if there's any really rendition of the Joker and Batman story and everything else, like in the comics and stuff, that's actually this good and actually portrays their rivalry better than in this movie.
Right.
Because this mainly was like technically Joker's movie in a way, because he basically steals the show. I feel like he even gets more screen time maybe than Batman does. And I just think like maybe he is actually in a way the Dark Knight that the movie is, that the title is actually about or something, because he causes all the chaos that needs to be done in order to actually kind of save the city.
I mean, one could also argue that Harvey Dent, aka Two-Face, is also the Dark Knight of the thing, because he was considered the White Knight, and because he was the good guy trying to do all the good and arrest all the criminals and save everybody and stuff, and then he ends up getting corrupted by Joker after he gets blown up, and and he ends up going evil and doing exactly what Joker wanted him to do. And so when he dies, Batman then has to take the blame so that the people won't think that Gotham's White Knight was actually
the one behind
corruptible.
Exactly.
Because if you can corrupt him, somebody as good as him, you can corrupt anybody, and then it basically a false hope. So in that way, the Joker didn't win, and that was because of Batman. So Batman, I think, got one up on Joker in that case.
And another thing that's so great about this movie is that it actually does kind of work as a standalone Batman movie. Like, even if you didn't really see Batman Begins, you don't really need to, other than to know like who Bruce Wayne and Batman are and who his old girlfriend Rachel Dawes is. But other than that, it's like and Gordon, I guess technically. But most of the other people we saw in the first movie didn't come back really. Even Crane, who's Scarecrow, shows up in this for like a few minutes, and Batman takes him down. To us, it was just a dude in a mask, So if you did go into this watching it without having seen the first one, it's kind of like this works perfectly as its own standalone superhero, Batman film, and it's like a perfect film that really captures what Batman is supposed to be, like this Dark Knight, shadowy figure that takes the law into his own hands for good, but could also be bad and things like that. I think it did really well showing that. Started off with a perfect beginning just to show kind of how strong Joker is. Like the beginning starts off with a bank heist orchestrated by Joker, and all his men end up getting killed because he kind of, I guess, made them kill each other in a way to get the money. Like, hey, I'll get more money if I kill this guy.
And
whatever.
even throughout the movie, every little thing that happens pretty much is part of the Joker's plan.
Joker's overall plan. Overall, I think the movie had like almost every scene, at least, that had the Joker and stuff, and it was incredible. And the way it was written, the way it was put together, and everything else just showed.
I mean, the whole movie itself.
It just showed, like, it almost made it seem like, yeah, he's right. Like, maybe we should be listening to this guy, because the way he's talking, the things he's saying about, just the mobs and everything else, and how human nature works, it's like, maybe he is right about these things. People are like this, but people also have good inside them, too, and that's what he failed to realize. He was trying to prove that we have evil inside us, and that's it, but there's also good, so it was kind of like, it was a nice mix of, dark and light, black and white type of thing with Joker. The dynamic between Joker and Batman is what really drove the movie the whole way. And I think this really was a fantastic movie, and what like a superhero movie kind of should be almost. It feels, we said this about like Batman Begins as well, it feels more like down to earth, more realistic. Like these are real people, not superheroes with flashy capes and flashy
and they're not fighting
and everything else.
It's not like the Avengers where they're fighting people from space.
They're
fighting just normal people.
Joker is a normal person. Batman is a normal person. He doesn't have superpowers and all that stuff. And that's why this works really well. It's just normal people doing normal, or trying to fight and combat against each other for, to prove a point and things like that. I would say, honestly, if I was to give this a rating, I would give it almost like a 5 out of 5 or a high 4. I mean, there wasn't really anything that I know. I mean, there wasn't really anything that like I didn't like about this movie. You know,
I mean,
it's a perfect film.
There were a couple
for
points
that kind of stuff.
There were a couple points where it was like, that's kind of convenient, or like,
well, I mean,
how does that just happen to work, or like things just didn't make sense. Especially the scene at the beginning, the bank heist, where the bus just pulls out of the side of the bank and nobody questions a thing.
Well, that's just
that. I mean, I know it's supposed to fit with the thing, but it's like, really, you're not gonna notice a bus driving out of the side of a building, But other than that, though, the plot, the characters, I think everything was great about this movie. And like I said, this is one of my favorite superhero movies. I'm not a huge fan of a lot of the DC stuff. So,
but especially nowadays.
This trilogy, though, I like the entire trilogy, but this is my favorite. I mean, one of my favorite superhero movies. Just because of what it shows in this movie. It was a lot different than Batman Begins, because that kind of showed the story of fear and things like that.
Right.
Whereas this kind of went with more of like the choice of right and wrong, or life or death, or
right.
Things.
Like the first.
So it's a different basically a different emotion to it than what the first one had.
The first movie was more about like him becoming a symbol, and then this one was more like what happens when that symbol gets taken out of context, sort of, or people start to do it use it for the wrong reasons, because he became Batman to be a symbol of fear to the bad guys and like hope for the good guys and stuff, but then people started in the Dark Knight movie, using that for, like, people were dressing up as Batman to go around killing people and things, so they were using it in the wrong way, and that's probably why he sacrifices that at the end. I think that really worked out as well. And then, like, the third movie, it's like, well, what happens now when the symbol is gone, essentially, and he has to come back?
It brings to mind that quote from Spider-Man when Green Goblin says, in spite of everything you've done for them, eventually they will hate you. Literally what happens
basically what happens
in this movie.
But he makes that choice.
But I mean, it's still, he sets it up so that, and basically Joker kind of set it up too, so that Batman would be out of the picture, in a way.
Exactly. So it has lasting effects, not just on the universe that they exist in, but like also on Bruce Wayne himself. So there you go, guys. Those were our thoughts and our review of The Dark Knight. Let us know what you guys thought down in the comments section if you've seen that movie. If you haven't seen the movie, we do really highly recommend that you check it out, even if you haven't seen Batman Begins. And also be sure to like this video and subscribe for more. We're going to be covering the third movie in the Dark Knight trilogy in our next video, which will be Dark Knight Rises, of course. And then next week we'll be talking about the new The Batman that's coming out in theaters. So look forward to that as well. Thank you for watching the video, everyone.
And remember, leave the scumbaggery at home, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Bye guys.
Subscribe.